Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today to take a look at how Ayoa can help you and your team manage a project. It might be that you have lots of projects going on right now which you're trying to juggle, or you might be in the process of piecing one together for a future venture. So hopefully today we'll show you that no matter what stage you are of a project, Ayoa is a tool that will make things a lot simpler for you, whilst also amplifying your creativity and success. This is because Ayoa believes that when it comes to managing a project, the innovation, collaboration, and planning which comes before are equally as important. Whilst project management capabilities are crucial, they are only worthwhile if you commit to the right ideas. So today will be much more than taking a look at assigning tasks in Ayoa. It will also share how Ayoa supports you in creating the best project imaginable. That is why, although you can no doubt see taskboards on the right of my Ayoa home screen, I am in fact going to begin in a digital whiteboard, which I produced earlier. Beginning with a collaborative resource such as this is really important because it will help you make sure that your project is planned in a way which sees the inclusion of ideas from your colleagues, despite us all still working remotely. This is a really important first step to take because the last thing you want to do is rush ahead into a project only for later on for a colleague to illuminate a major flaw or an oversight which came about due to you working by yourself. Ayoa's digital whiteboards are a great space for you to share ideas with others because, like everything in Ayoa, they enable real-time collaboration, meaning that people can work together concurrently. In order to do so, however, you first need to add your colleagues into the whiteboard alongside you. By simply heading to the top right-hand corner of your screen and selecting Share, followed by clicking on this bar just down below, Ayoa will load up members of your Ayoa team who you can select to add to the whiteboard, like I am doing now. Including others will put your project in a far better position because you will reap the benefits of diverse perspectives. As innovation becomes supercharged via collaboration though, Ayoa not only makes it doable via sharing resources between colleagues, it also ensures that nothing gets in its way. This has been achieved through making the sharing of ideas and resources as intuitive and simple as possible, so that everyone can do it with ease. You will see that on the left of my screen here is the whiteboard toolbar, which hosts everything you could ever need to include in a digital whiteboard. There are sticky notes, checklists, images, text boxes, attachments, even flowcharts. You name it, it can be found on the left in this whiteboard toolbar for you. Also, adding these resources to your whiteboards to share them with your colleagues is as easy as finding them, because as you can see from what I'm going to do now with this sticky note, it is as easy as simply selecting the shape, the color, and then dragging and dropping it onto wherever you want to place it onto your whiteboard. And once you have dropped it there, you can type directly into it to contribute to the whiteboard alongside your colleagues whilst you're planning your project. So that is how Ayoa's whiteboards can enable colleagues to seamlessly share ideas with each other whilst planning out their project. A big benefit of working in this way before you get your project up and running is that thanks to Ayoa's real-time collaboration capabilities, everyone can share their ideas freely at the same time without the interruption of others. In other words, it's a great way to overcome the familiar problem of a loud personality on a Zoom call, not allowing anyone else to get a word in edgeways. However, sometimes a bit of face-to-face communication can still be invaluable, especially when planning a project and discussing its direction, because you wouldn't want anything to be lost in communication. As a result, in Ayoa, you can create a group chat between everyone in your Ayoa resource, whether it be a mind map, taskboard, or whiteboard, at a click of a button, which you can see me doing here in the top right-hand corner of my screen again. This group chat will always open up on the left of your screen whenever you have the complimentary Ayoa resource open, as it gives you an extra space to talk generally about your overall project. By default, You might wish to type in messages to each other, like you can do at the bottom here. However, if you look up to the top of your group chat, you will see that there is also a video icon, enabling you to begin a video call with all members of the group chat. This video functionality is exclusive to Ayoa Ultimate plans, but does make teamwork a lot more conducive, especially when you combine it with Ayoa, which provides a space for people to visually see their plans and edit them alongside those who they are talking to. Overall though, with a whiteboard like this, as you can see on my screen, the ability for everyone to add their contributions to it just by dragging and dropping sticky notes and other resources, and the option of a video call to help facilitate healthy discussions, hopefully you can see why engaging in some collaboration such as this before managing a project is fundamental. However, although whiteboards are a staple of teamwork, whilst within an office, sometimes an alternative way of working can be preferable. That is why within Ayoa, we also have mind maps. In contrast to whiteboards, mind maps are renowned for how they align with our brains, making them a brilliant resource for generating creative ideas. If you therefore think that your project requires an injection of creativity, by going to the board options in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you can transform your whiteboard into a mind map at a click of a button. The result being that you and your colleagues can now work in an even more intuitive format, which promotes you to think clearly, because as you can see, we now have exactly the same information which is in the whiteboard, now reflected here in a mind map format. With us having arguably looked at the most difficult part of our project, which requires the most thinking, it is now time to discover how Ayoa enables you to make the most of your wonderful ideas. Before a project begins rolling with its own momentum, you have to make sure that everyone knows what they need to do in order to get it up and running. This can be a very tentative point, because if communication isn't enacted properly, all of your thinking could go to waste. Nowadays, it often becomes a problem because following a Zoom call, people become disconnected from one another, and project managers just have to hope that those who they dedicated to are aware of their responsibilities. Alternatively, some poor individual might have to write up the minutes from the meeting and send them around in an email thread, which will inevitably get tangled up into knots. Whether it be relying hopefully on each colleague to be fully tuned in, or being dependent on the very archaic collection of minutes from a meeting, neither seem like the perfect solution. What Ayoa offers, though, might well be. In addition to providing resources such as whiteboards and mind maps for you to collaboratively plan before a project is in operation, plus taskboards for when a project is in full swing, Ayoa has also managed to seamlessly bridge the gap between the two so that nothing falls through the cracks. First of all, though, there must be a consensus on what actions should be taken. In order to do so, whether it be by clicking on a sticky note in a whiteboard, which hosts an idea, or a branch in a mind map, you will see that each has a comments button and a thumbs up icon. The former means you can have a dedicated space to discuss the validity of an idea, whilst the latter means that you can quickly vote for which ideas you would like to take forward. Once you have agreed upon what needs to be done, Ayoa's bridge between ideas and actions can come to the fore in the form of what is known as the taskbar. The taskbar can be found in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen when you have either a whiteboard or a mind map open. By popping it up, you are then prompted in the bottom right-hand corner to attach an Ayoa taskboard. You could select one you have already made. However, if you haven't got one yet, you don't need to worry, because at the bottom of the list, you'll see that you can create a new taskboard directly from within your whiteboard. Due to restraints on time, I am, however, going to attach one which I made earlier in advance of today's webinar. And as you can see, having done so, the categories of the attached taskboard now appear along the base of my screen. In this instance, I have chosen categories which order tasks that form our project by which department is responsible for them. So you'll see that we have finance, sales, marketing, design, etc. The beauty of the taskbar is that you can remain within a whiteboard or a mind map which visually shows you all of your ideas, whilst it brings the category of your taskboard to you. As a result, by assessing everyone's contribution to this whiteboard, and in particular those which have been voted for, you can transform sticky notes, which are merely visually telling you what needs to be done, into tangible tasks which people will become accountable for. In order to do so, hover over a sticky note and then grab hold of this final icon, just to the right of the thumbs up icon. Next, you just have to drag and drop it into the correct colourful category tab along the base of your screen in the taskbar, and you will see that when I drop it into the category named marketing, it will then say one task added. And when I pop up the colourful category tab, you can see that it is now listed as a task, along with all the other ones I previously made in my taskboard. So there you have it. Thanks to Ayoa's taskbar, sharing ideas and deciding upon the best ones for your project need not be a waste of time. Instead, it can be very productive because the taskbar ensures that your thinking time will then lead to action in your taskboards. And that is what we're going to look at next, by hopping quickly across from our digital whiteboard to the attached taskboard, which facilitates team collaboration. To do so, I'm going to pop up any of the colourful category tabs and then press on the arrow icon in the top right-hand corner. Ayoa then transports me across to my taskboard, which outlines all the tasks which everyone needs to complete for the project to go smoothly. This is also the area of Ayoa where we get into the nitty-gritty details of task and project management. However, you'll notice that what we are all currently looking at doesn't appear to be especially rich in detail. Instead, it is very stripped back and basic, with the colourful rings acting as categories for my tasks, and the circles within being the tasks themselves. As a result, this view of the tasks which form my project isn't overwhelming and instead very clearly presents a bird's eye view of everything which needs to be done. This format for organising tasks is known as the canvas mode in Ayoa, but it isn't the only way to view tasks, because by going to the display options in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you will see that you can change the board type to different styles. By selecting to view tasks in the workflow, you will notice that the same categories and tasks are represented here, but now in a linear list format. And then, if you switch to the Gantt timeline, you will not be surprised to see that the tasks are now structured in a very time-orientated way. We have these different styles because every individual works in a different way. Some are very visual, so would likely prefer the canvas. Some are structured, so might like the more traditional linear list format of the workflow, whilst others could be very time-orientated, so would likely opt for the Gantt timeline. When it comes to managing projects, this is extremely important to consider because you will most likely have multiple people contributing to its success. Fortunately, Ayoa enables every individual to have the same taskboard open at the same time as each other, yet with every person seeing it in a style which they prefer. For example, if all of us were in the taskboard together, just because I might have it open in the canvas mode right now, wouldn't dictate that all of you also have to see it in the canvas. Some of you could have it open in the workflow and others in the Gantt timeline at exactly the same time. As a result, Ayoa's different styles help ensure that everyone working on the project can do so to the best of their ability. However, regardless of which format you prefer, when it comes to digesting all of the tasks which make up a project, the finer details of each must still be accessible. If we take a look at our market research task, which we produced a little earlier on, whilst within our digital whiteboard, I'll show you how important information regarding it can be relayed. First of all, you must click on the relevant task to open up its side panel on the right of the screen, as every task has its own unique side panel, which hosts all of its details. To start with, you'll notice that just below halfway, this task currently isn't assigned to anyone. So first of all, I need to make sure that other people are in this taskboard alongside me. To do so, just go to the top right-hand corner of your screen, click on the Share button, select the bar just below, and like we did in the whiteboard, select your colleagues and add them in to the taskboard. Having added a few people to the taskboard, you are now in a position to be able to assign them actual tasks. So again, just click on to a task, click on the Add Assignee button just below halfway down in the side panel, and then you can select as many people as you like to assign the task to, as long as they're in this taskboard alongside you. And the moment that you give them that responsibility, they'll receive a notification. If we look just above the Assign section, you'll see that we have some very basic functionality, but also very crucial of being able to set a start date along with a due date, both of which you can edit as the project progresses. A really good feature to highlight within the due date section, though, is that if you find yourself doing a certain task again and again, it might be a weekly project catch-up which you have with your overall team, for example, you can set for it to repeat. So I'm just going to set this example task to repeat weekly. And having done so, what that means is that if I scroll the progress bar up here all the way along to 100%, not only will it register itself as complete, you'll notice that it's automatically regenerated itself for a week's time like we asked it to. You'll also notice that despite this task being completed and crossed out, it is still lingering here on our taskboard. And that's because by default, all Ayoa tasks remain on an Ayoa taskboard for 48 hours after completion. But you can either increase or decrease that time in your personal settings. The good thing is though, especially from a project management perspective, is that if you return to the display options and go to switch the style of boards that you're in, at the very bottom of the list, you'll see that there's something called the Completed tab. The Completed tab stores all of your completed tasks indefinitely. So even after that example 48 hours has been and gone. And if you click on any of the tasks, all the information for it appears on the right. So you're never going to lose anything which is important. So I'll just return to the canvas mode quickly to show you how else you can share information via tasks. Because the progress bar, which I just showed you a moment ago to complete a task, you can in fact scroll along to something less than 100%. Let's say 50%, for example. And what you'll see is that having done so, we get a proportionate ring going halfway round my task to visually reflect its progress. This is really helpful when managing a task because it means that just at a glance, people can understand how everything is moving forward. No words are needed whatsoever, so hopefully nothing will get lost in communication. It's quick, it's easy, and it's very intuitive. Another pair of visual indicators which we have can be found just below the progress bar. This time, they're called the urgency and importance tags. It's really down to personal preference how you use these with your team, but hopefully at the beginning of your project, you can come to some sort of decision upon it. Once you've decided that, if you click on the lightning strike and then the orange box, that might indicate that something is mildly urgent, for example. And if you were to click on the flag and the red box, that could symbolize that something's really important. Once again, this has been achieved with no words being used whatsoever, meaning that it's really easy to understand not only what is a priority, but why it's a priority as well. And when you are managing a project, obviously things do change. So at certain points, you may need to bump up the priority of different tasks. If we look along the top of our side panel, you'll see that there are additional tabs. Away from the general info one, which we're currently in, the next one we have is that of the notes section. This is a really handy place for you to relay information to others who have the responsibility of enacting a certain task. Because within the notes section, you can type in any extra information which might help them understand what they need to achieve in order to get the task completed. And then if we look along the top at some of the other tabs, you'll see that we've got an attachment section. And by clicking on this box here, you can upload any file from your computer, Dropbox or Google Drive. It might be that at this point during your project, you require a certain form to be filled out. It might be planning permission if you're involved in construction, for example. So if you're really wanting to stay on top of managing the project, you can get everything sorted out in advance, preempt the resources and materials which will be needed, and upload them as an attachment behind the task, which will then be accessible for everyone who's in the task board whenever they might need it. And then the final tab along the top is that of the checklist. And this is simply because sometimes a task isn't as easy as one step and complete. And no project is like that either. So we've gone into even more finer detail within the tasks themselves by offering you to turn them into multiple steps via the checklist. And you can just type in, any step which you might need in order to complete this task by simply pressing the Enter key, and now they appear down here as a checklist. You'll also notice that on my task, it now shows 0 out of 4, but if I tick off step 1 and step 2, it will then update to reflect and show 2 out of 4. So again, just by looking at the top surface level of the task, people can grasp how everything is moving forward, and they don't in fact actually have to even open up the side panel if they're just wanting to get an overview of the progress. By returning to the general info tab along the top of our side panel, the last couple of things to show you which can be quite helpful when wanting to share information about specific tasks that make up a project is that near the bottom, you can add as many reminders as you like. You might do this as someone who has been assigned a task, or you might be doing it as a manager because you think that it might help the person who you've given certain responsibilities to. Either way, hopefully by adding reminders, it means that everything can be achieved on time. And then at the very bottom, you'll see that people can add tags. We've already divided our work via different categories, as you can see here. But by adding tags, it means that you can split them up into even finer detail. So you can name your tags whatever you like. This might be for product launch number 1, for example. And having added that, you'll see that it appears at the base of my task. It might seem quite insignificant currently, but when it becomes really powerful is if you open up the filter bar in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, because this enables anyone to filter their tasks by who they're assigned to. Maybe they just want to focus on their work, or someone who's off on holiday and they're having to cover it for them, when the task has a start date, if it's got any attachments, etc., etc. But the one of tags is maybe the most powerful because, like I just showed you, you can name the tags whatever you like. So I'm just going to search for our product launch tag and then click to activate it. And having done so, you'll see that everything else without that tag disappears. So it immediately condenses what you're looking at. Inevitably, sometimes when you're engaged in a massive project, you will have lots of tasks going on, and not all of them may be immediately relevant for you. And that can produce a lot of distracting noise and potentially make you less productive. So thanks to the filter bar being able to condense what you're looking at, that can really ensure that you get on with the work which you should be prioritizing. And by deactivating the filter, you'll see that the big picture reappears for you. With all of those details being easily found for each task by simply clicking on them to open up the side panel on the right of the screen, every member of a project can comprehensively understand what is required of them in order to get tasks done. However, in some instances, there is still likely going to be the need for additional communication, and that's perfectly fine. As shown in the digital whiteboards earlier, this can be achieved by creating a group chat for the whole Ayoa taskboard by clicking on the share icon in the top right before selecting to create a group chat. In this area though, discussions are likely to be quite general and about the overall project, regardless of if you converse via messages down the bottom or video call at the top. If you therefore are looking for a dedicated chat per task so that you can remain focused on solely that area of the project, within Ayoa, that is possible too, because by opening up the task side panel, you might have noticed earlier that if we look along the top, there is a whole tab dedicated solely to comments, enabling you and your colleagues to inquire about tasks and keep each other informed about them as they progress. Another useful feature when sending comments to your colleagues, regardless of whether it is in the comments section of a task or in a group chat, is that you can also tag individuals or whole groups by clicking on the @ symbol at the very bottom to ensure that you gain their attention when talking to them about extra important messages, for example. So whilst communication played a pivotal role in planning the project earlier on and maintaining it during the management of the project, it's therefore also sustainable thanks to Ayoa's various ways to communicate, no matter what you're engaging with. It isn't just communication which can be upheld though when moving across to managing a project in full flow, so too can the visual aspect of Ayoa. This is again thanks to the taskbar, and I'll show you how by just quickly returning to our digital whiteboard from earlier. Due to the taskbar being able to show me the categories plus the tasks of the attached taskboard, by clicking on any of the tasks, it presents the task's relevant side panel on the right of the screen with all of its details, which we are more familiar seeing whilst within a taskboard. As a result, what you could do is in fact manage your task whilst within the visual context of your whiteboard or your mind map, enabling you to manage your project, plus make sure that you're remaining on track with what your initial vision for the project was. And that has seen us go full circle, from the planning stage of a project to the management of it, and back again to our planning resources to ensure that we are staying true to the initial objectives of the project. And all the while, this has been done solely within Ayoa, thanks to its real-time collaboration capabilities, bringing colleagues together no matter where they are, and various methods for effective communication to be enacted. Today, we made good use of the strategic planning template, which you can see here, which encourages you to think not only about the key objectives of your projects, but also how they can be attained and what can be done to make sure that they are achieved. However, within Ayoa, you'll find lots of other available templates, which can help you make every type of project you engage with a success. These are all readily available, and you'll find that you can create your own templates and use other ones which we've produced specifically for our users. Because if I go to click to create a whiteboard, you'll see that they're all listed down below here. They are free to use, and you can use them whenever you want. You can edit them if you so like, and it just basically means that you are given a head start with any sort of project that you might be engaging with. So please do take a look at them if you have a chance. You'll also notice that when you go to create your own whiteboard, like I'm just going to do now, there's also the option down the bottom to create a corresponding taskboard alongside it. And if you tick for that to be the case, you'll see that we've also got some templates for your very own taskboards. If you choose to do so, like I'm going to do now currently with the Kanban template which we've created, you'll see that when I create my overall whiteboard, not only do I get a preloaded one because I selected a whiteboard template, if I pop up the taskbar in the very bottom left, that taskboard, which we chose to create from the template, is also straight away available for me down the bottom here. So those are two final handy tips for you, our templates for the whiteboards and the ability to attach taskboards the moment you create a whiteboard. And that is about all for today, apart from if anyone has any questions, please do, of course, drop them into the Q&A and I'll try to answer them the best as I can currently. A couple of few notes whilst people may be typing in their questions is that to further support you with your own projects, we will be sending a follow-up email to everyone who registered for today's webinar with a recording of the session, plus also some links to our templates, which we think are probably the best ones for you to get up and running with any sort of project which you're wanting to manage. So they'll be sent out later on. I think it will be received by you tomorrow, hopefully. But I'm just going to take a look at the Q&A now. So someone is asking if the completed tasks also remain in the Gantt view so we can see them as successfully completed. So if I just go back into a task board and switch to a Gantt timeline, you'll see that that task which we completed here, it's still here and it's ticked off to show that it has been completed. In contrast, this one here, which is only progressed by 50%, you'll see that it's shaded halfway out to reflect that progress. So yes, the completed tasks remain on the Gantt timeline for 48 hours, but you can increase or decrease that time in your personal settings. It doesn't just happen in the Canvas view, it happens in the Gantt timeline like we're in now. It happens in the workflow. Again, you can see that it's been completed, but it's still there for the time being. So yeah, no matter what task board style you're in, all of the same information will be reflected in them. I'm just seeing if we've got any other questions. Someone's asking if you can invite people outside of Ayoa or do they need a license instead? So that's a good question because there are a few ways to collaborate with others within Ayoa. The principal way is obviously having your own license of Ayoa. You can either purchase a single license for yourself or we have team licenses. They currently go from teams of 1, 5, 10, 15, up in values of 5, etc. But there are other ways you can get people involved with Ayoa without having to pay. So if you wanted to bring in someone else into this task board who doesn't have a paying Ayoa account, what you can do is you can click on the share button in the top right, select this bar, which yes, does load up everyone in your Ayoa team and everyone you've ever collaborated with before. But what you can also do is type in someone's email address if they don't have an Ayoa account. And if you type in that email address and then click to add them, they'll receive an email from us to sign up to the free version of Ayoa. And the free version is limited in some ways, with the main restrictions being that free users can only have access to 5 mind map task boards and whiteboards in total. And within each of those Ayoa resources, they can only create 50 elements. So if it was in a sticky note, if it was in a whiteboard, they could only drag and drop 50 sticky notes, for example. If it was in a task board, they could only create 50 tasks, for example. But apart from that, all of the real-time collaboration features, like I showed you today, such as updating the progress bar, maybe leaving a comment on a task, voting for a sticky note, etc. They're still all available to them. So the free version is limited in some ways, but you can definitely collaborate with others. We have a lot of marketing agencies, for example, using it in that way, where they will set up a task board so their clients can see all of the work which they're getting done and be updated on its progress. But then they invite their clients into the task board as a free Ayoa user so they can really see all of the details which is going on. So I'm just going to have a look at some of the other questions we have. Just asking what happens when people reach the 50 limit. Is it per project or overall? So the 50 limit is per Ayoa resource. So they can have access to up to 5 Ayoa resources. So 5, so that would be a mixture of either, 2 mind maps, 2 task boards, and 1 whiteboard. And within each of them, they can add 50 elements. So they could add 50 tasks into one task board, 50 tasks into another task board, 50 branches on a mind map and another mind map, for example, and 50 sticky notes on a whiteboard. Okay, just taking a look at some other ones we have. Someone's asking about how long does it take this to become second nature for a new user? And that is a good question. As I mentioned during today, we try to make Ayoa as intuitive as possible. If you start off with the whiteboard, that's always a good space because people seem to be quite familiar with them, and we've tried to make it essentially a whiteboard as you'd expect in real life, but reflected in a digital format. Everything's drag and drop, so it's very easy to use. Sometimes people don't recognize from the start that you can link your Ayoa resources together via the taskbar, like I showed you today with the whiteboards leading onto the task boards, the mind maps leading onto the task boards. But once they recognize that that is in place, they really see the value of it because, like I was saying earlier on, it's making sure that both steps of innovation are enacted, not only the coming up with ideas, which everyone enjoys doing, but also the making sure that they get round to doing their ideas and turning them into tasks which they are then responsible for. But again, it's a very seamless operation once you know that it is available in Ayoa. So I think that you guys who attended today have been given that insight, and hopefully it will become second nature for you very well and very quickly, and you'll see the benefit in it straight away because it will help you hold yourself accountable for those ideas that you come up with, because once you turn them into tasks, you get those reminders, you set start date, due dates, etc., update progress to see what you're achieving. But if you are going to share others with Ayoa, that's definitely something to make sure they're aware of from the start, the ability to link their Ayoa resources together via the taskbar, whether it be a whiteboard to a taskboard or a mind map to a taskboard, for example. But generally, we hear a good consensus that once people recognize that that is doable, they get the hang of it pretty quickly. Okay, so just taking a look at some of the other questions we have. So someone else was saying they got a team of 5, but they're the only one with a paid version. How can they bring in free users? Hopefully I answered that one earlier for you. Just click on the share button and type in someone's email address here, and they'll receive an email from us to sign up to the free version. Then they'll have access to that Ayoa resource to collaborate with you as well. I'm just going to take a look at some others. So someone's asking if there's a limit to how many Post-its you can add. So if you're a paying user, no, you can drag and drop as many Post-its as you like onto your whiteboards. If you are a free user, yes, you will be limited to 50 elements in total within whatever, if you're in a whiteboard, for example, so it might be 50 sticky notes, it could be 25 checklists and 25 sticky notes, for example. And you're asking if you can drop them together. I'm not too sure if what I'm about to show you will answer your question, but you'll see that if I grab hold of one sticky note and then drag and drop it onto another one, it creates what is known as a collection. It's like a stack of sticky notes. So we could say that all of these sticky notes are in fact related to one another. And when I click on it, it opens up. And as you can see, there's all of those sticky notes which I've grouped together. And if you click where it says new collection, you can rename it to name that collection maybe something a bit more suitable. Okay, yep, that answers that question. Apparently that's good to know. That's all right. And then I think the final one we've got is, just reading it now, someone's saying that the longest that a task can remain on the Ayoa task board is for 7 days when you change it in your personal settings. Yes, that is correct. So you can have it up to 7 days and it will remain on your task board like this. After that, it will then be removed from your task board to free up space for other things which you might be wanting to get on, or tasks which have recreated because you've set for them to repeat. If you do, however, want to take a look back at everything which you've completed, just go to the display options, and then where it says board type, you'll see at the bottom there's a completed tab, and this will store all of your completed tasks indefinitely. So even after that 7 days has been and gone, everything will be stored here. You'll never lose it. If you do want it to appear on the actual Gantt view, this is something which we're considering changing. So it is a good point to raise, and it is something that could be coming soon, but that's how it currently works within Ayoa. We are, however, always adapting and evolving it and trying to improve the product, obviously. So yes, that's something which we could consider from a Gantt timeline perspective. Okay, so I'm just seeing if we've got any other questions. Okay, so that seems like all of the questions. I hope that today was useful in sharing with you how Ayoa can help you manage your project all the way from its conception through to the nitty-gritty of assigning tasks to different people and making sure they're all updated with the details that they need to know, and even through to the point where you might have the project up and running, but you want to make sure that you're staying on track and staying true to your initial objectives. Like I also mentioned, we will be sending a follow-up email tomorrow. It'll receive a recording. You'll receive a recording of this session. So if you want to take a look at it yourself again to take a recap of some things or maybe share it with others. And we'll also be sending you some links to our templates, which we think are particularly good for managing projects. It won't just take you straight into the Ayoa app to open them. It will also take you through to our template library, where there's loads and loads of information on how the templates can be best applied, what situations to use them in, and how to actually use them. So definitely worthwhile taking a look at that extra literature which comes alongside the templates. But thank you very much for everyone who attended today. I hope you have a good rest of your day, rest of your week as well, and hopefully hear from you soon. Bye for now.